The golden envelope trembled in my hands as I stared at the address. My ex-husband's house, where I hadn't lived in 3 years. Inside was my father's wedding invitation, but my name wasn't on it. Just the Morrison family. They thought they'd erased me completely. They had no idea I'd spent 5 years building an empire in the shadows, waiting for this exact moment. My name is Sophia Kane, 29, former pharmaceutical researcher turned underground information broker. This is how I turned my father's wedding into his worst nightmare. Legally, methodically, and absolutely devastatingly. After Mom died in a car accident when I was 16, my billionaire father Marcus Kane wasted no time replacing us both. Within 8 months, he married his 25-year-old assistant Elena Rodriguez, and suddenly I became the problem child from his past. They shipped me off to boarding school, then college, always with excuses about what's best for everyone. The final betrayal came when I discovered Dad had been systematically stealing my mother's pharmaceutical patents, worth over $50 million, and transferring them to Elena's newly formed biotech company. When I confronted him with evidence, he had me committed to a psychiatric facility for delusional behavior and grief-induced paranoia. After my release, I discovered he'd told everyone I'd had a nervous breakdown and couldn't be trusted. My trust fund was frozen, my inheritance disputed, and my own family treated me like a dangerous stranger. But they underestimated one crucial thing. I inherited Mom's genius-level intellect and her research skills. While they thought I was broken, I was building something extraordinary. I created Pandora Solutions, a discreet investigation firm that specialized in exposing corporate fraud and family secrets for wealthy clients. My client list read like a Forbes magazine. Politicians, CEOs, celebrities, all people who needed inconvenient truths buried or explosive secrets uncovered. I'd become the person the ultra-wealthy feared most. Someone who could destroy reputations with surgical precision. Standing in my penthouse office, staring at that misdirected wedding invitation, I realized this wasn't just neglect. It was the final insult. They weren't just excluding me. They were pretending I'd never existed. I opened my encrypted laptop and began what I called Operation Genesis, a complete reconstruction of the Kane family truth. First, I contacted my half-brother Dylan through his gaming account. At 19, he was the only family member who still acknowledged my existence, though Elena had poisoned him against me over the years. Soph. His voice cracked with surprise. Dad said you were unwell. I'm calling about the wedding, Dylan. I want to give Dad something special. A surprise video tribute for the reception. Do you still have access to his private office? Dylan did, and he was eager to help his troubled sister make peace with the family. What he didn't know was that I needed exactly 47 minutes in that office to clone every hard drive, photograph every document, and install microscopic recording devices that would stream directly to my servers. Next, I leveraged my professional network. Elena's maid of honor was Jessica Chen, a former pharmaceutical executive who'd unknowingly helped cover up the patent theft. Through careful social engineering, I convinced Jessica that I was planning a heartfelt reconciliation surprise and needed inside information about the wedding timeline. Jessica provided everything. Guest lists, seating arrangements, even Elena's detailed schedule. She had no idea she was handing me the blueprint for their destruction. The wedding venue was the Kane Estate's grand ballroom, the same room where my parents had celebrated their 10th anniversary, before Elena entered the picture. The irony was perfect. 3 days before the wedding, I received the intelligence goldmine I'd been waiting for. The office recordings had captured Marcus and Elena in heated arguments about money, specifically about the $200 million pharmaceutical deal they'd built on my mother's stolen patents, and their plans to liquidate my inheritance to fund Elena's congressional campaign. But the most devastating discovery was a recorded conversation between Elena and her brother Carlos, where she laughed about having me institutionalized and joked about finishing what the car accident started regarding my mother. I arrived at the estate exactly as the ceremony concluded, wearing my mother's vintage Chanel suit, the one from her last board meeting before the accident. The guests were moving to the reception when I approached the main entrance. Miss Kane. The security guard looked shocked. We weren't expecting. Family emergency, I said smoothly, handing him an official-looking document. I need to speak with my father immediately. I found Marcus and Elena at the head table, basking in congratulations from 300 of society's elite. When Marcus saw me, his champagne glass shattered against the marble floor. Sophia. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. But how did you get out of the psychiatric facility? I smiled sweetly. Turns out when you have actual evidence of fraud and attempted murder, judges take that very seriously. I placed a thick manila envelope on their table. Wedding present. Open it. Inside were copies of every document, every recording, every piece of evidence I'd gathered. But the centerpiece was a full forensic analysis of my mother's car accident, revealing that the brake lines had been professionally severed. You see, I continued, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent ballroom, when you have unlimited resources and 5 years of motivation, you can uncover fascinating things. Like how Elena's brother Carlos just happened to be working at the same auto repair shop where Mom took her car the day before she died. Elena's face had gone completely white. Marcus was frantically flipping through the documents, his hands shaking. The pharmaceutical patents worth $200 million. Stolen. My inheritance. Embezzled. My commitment to the psychiatric facility. Based on forged documents. And my mother's death. Paused dramatically. Well, let's just say it wasn't an accident. As I spoke, FBI agents appeared at every exit. I'd spent months building an airtight case with federal prosecutors, and they'd been waiting for exactly this moment, when Marcus and Elena would be trapped in a room full of witnesses. Agent Morrison, you can proceed with the arrests, I said into my concealed microphone. The ballroom erupted into chaos as federal agents moved through the crowd. Marcus lunged toward me, but Agent Morrison intercepted him smoothly. Marcus Kane, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit murder. Elena Rodriguez Kane, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and accessory to murder. As they led my father and stepmother away in handcuffs, I turned to address the stunned crowd of society's elite, many of whom had shunned me for years based on lies. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending what will certainly be the most memorable wedding of the social season. The bar remains open, and I'd like to invite you all to stay for what I'm calling the truth reception. There are some fascinating documents about several of your business dealings that I think you'll find illuminating. 6 months later, Marcus and Elena were convicted on all charges. I recovered my full inheritance, my mother's patents, and something far more valuable, my story. Dylan moved in with me, finally understanding the truth about what had happened to our family. The Kane pharmaceutical empire was liquidated, with the proceeds going to a foundation I established in my mother's name, dedicated to exposing corporate fraud and supporting children who'd lost parents under suspicious circumstances. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about restoration. Restoring truth, restoring justice, and restoring yourself to a story where others tried to write you out permanently. They thought erasing me from their wedding would be the final chapter of my story. Instead, it became the first page of theirs ending. If someone has tried to erase you from your own story, remember this. The truth doesn't disappear just because someone buries it. Sometimes it just needs the right moment to surface, and when it does, it can bring down entire empires built on lies. My father wanted to forget I existed. Now he'll have 25 years in federal prison to remember exactly who I am.